And now, an audiovisual presentation, presented by Squad Entertainment Inc. Alpha and Omega is a 2010 animated kid film made by Crest Animation Productions that spawned 7 sequels. Yes, 7. It must be a pretty good film then, right? To be milk for 7 more movies? Wrong. For those of you who are too young to remember Alpha and Omega, or just never saw it because, well...
Now, they're both about to be stuck in the middle.
Set them free.
Of nowhere.
It didn't even look like any more than a made-for-TV movie aimed at 3-year-olds. Let me fill you in. Boy Wolf is in love with Girl Wolf, but forbidden loved, then trap together, fall in love, return home, get married. I could go into more detail, but I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyways, what the plot doesn't cover in generic, the homages do. You know the Stampede in The Lion King? The one that kills Mufasa? Boom, put it in the movie. You know Romeo and Juliet? Put it in the movie. It's one of the most generic films you will ever watch, but it's a pretty harmless kids film. I watched it when I was 8 or 9 and read the book, but I went to rewatch it a few weeks ago and couldn't remember a single aspect of the plot. Even as of writing this, I rewatched the film 2-3 weeks ago, and I only remember one scene. This one.
Gotta keep fit to lead the pack. But what really gets me going is... Was it, good for you?
And the only reason I could tell you a single plot point other than that one scene from the first film is because I recently watched the second film. And the second film is just, remember when we did that thing last time? Let's do it again. Also, don't ask why I watched Alpha and Omega 2. We're in quarantine, I needed something to do. Get off my back. So why am I even talking about this? Why did I feel the urge to create a channel just to talk about a harmless kids movie? Well, that's simple. See, this video isn't about Alpha and Omega at all. It's actually about the sequel, Alpha and Omega 2, A Howl-iday Adventure. This 2013 sequel was awful, and it's one of 7. There are 6 more after this, but I'll talk about those when I get to them. Everyone knows you can't watch the Alpha and Omega movies too quickly, or you'll overdose, and that's just bad. Anyways, Alpha and Omega 2 has even cheaper animation than the first. It reuses jokes from both the first movie and other properties. It has a forced conflict at best, which gives the movie little to no plot or stakes. So, without further ado, whatever ado is, I present to you Alpha and Omega 2, A Howl-iday Adventure, Unskripted. I don't know how buying music works, so I'm just gonna write my own song. Now, for those of you who am I kidding? For all of you who haven't seen this film, let's head over to Plotland to recap the events of this movie. Now, you might notice that Plotland looks a bit different than usual. That's because anything that you would consider plot in any other film doesn't really exist here. Let me explain. The film begins with a scene where we meet 3 wolf pups. Boy Wolf 1, Sister Wolf, and Runt. I'm sure that the other 2 have names, but Runt is the only one of these 3 with any relevance to the film, really. Anyways, these are Alpha and Omega's kids. They are doing things, wolf things. I'm not exactly sure what they're doing, don't really remember. But, I know they're given some sweet exposition. Namely that both, the girl and boy wolf, whose names I don't remember, are alphas, whereas Runt is an omega, like his father. And Runt likes to climb trees, even though his siblings ostracize him for doing so. We're also introduced to Boy Wolf's amazing sense of sniffing. He can sniff so dang good. It's It's crazy. Then a bear attacks, and the two alpha children are determined to take on the bear before immediately being overpowered by the bear. Luckily, some rogue wolves come to help the two pups, but also, while the two pups are distracted, they kidnap Runt, who's taken back to the rogue wolf's den. So right off the bat, immediately, we have our plot for the movie. Rescue the kidnapped character. Pretty common, no harm in that. Just a kid's film after all. Now we just need to figure out why the bad wolves want to kidnap Runt, like what their motive is. And then we have the beginning of a decent kid's film. But before we can get to that, the film cuts to our adult protagonists, our Alpha and our Omega, Kate and Humphrey. I think. I'm gonna be completely honest here. I'm not positive that her name is Kate, but that's what I went with when writing the script, and I didn't fact check it, and I'm not going to start now. Anyway, Kate and Humphrey are planning dinner for their parents for Christmas, Christmas is a really big part of this first 2 minutes, which isn't surprising, since the movie is called a Howl-iday adventure. However, we'll soon realize that Christmas isn't really important or even really mentioned after this scene is over. And a little bit toward the end. But again, that's not the plot. We're getting back to the plot. This is Plotland. Kate and Humphrey are planning dinner for their parents. Humphrey, the Omega, goes off to eat berries with his friends. And then when he gets back, Kate is upset with him for taking too long or something. And then the parents arrive. And then the kids come in. And the kids are freaking out because Runt was kidnapped. So the Alpha and Omega's parents, the grandparents, go to set up an army of good wolves to fight the army of bad wolves. And Kate and Humphrey leave to go find Runt. Other alpha pups, they stay behind because Kate and Humphrey don't want them getting hurt. So now we're back with the rogue wolves, and we're finally going to get an explanation why they kidnap Runt. They kidnap Runt because I don't know. I guess they want to kill the Omegas in the good. They never really explain why the bad wolves took the kid. So the movie immediately begins to crumble right there. But again, getting ahead of myself, that's for a later conversation. Anyway, the Alpha and Omega go on a wild adventure to save their kid, with almost every obstacle that was in the first movie repeating itself. And about halfway through the film, the boy pup and girl pup, they sneak out of the cave to go save their brother and meet up with their parents. And at about the time the kids meet up with the parents, we also are reintroduced to our friends from the first movie, Duck and Goose. It's not really explained why Duck and Goose are there. They just kind of show up, and I guess it's the right place, right time kind of situation. And so the quest continues with our expanded team of heroes. We have now 2 adults, 2 pups, and Duck and Goose. So they rescue Runt. There's a battle. The bears save the wolves. I'll get to that. And then the good wolves escape. And I mean, that's it. That's the movie. I guess we can leave Plotland now. I said we can leave Plotland now.
We don't have the budget for another set.
Well, can we at least cross out the word plot?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. Anyways, welcome to the part of the video where I talk about you're just standing. Are you gonna cross it out? Sorry about that, just some behind the scenes. Oh, okay. I'm now receiving the middle finger, which I'm going to take as a visual confirmation that the stage hand will actually be doing its job for once. But that is way off topic and a conversation between me and him later. Anyways, back to talking about Alpha and Omega 2. The movie as a whole isn't good. But obviously you don't want to hear that from some pre-planned essay I wrote out. So this is my favorite part of the show. The name of the show, Unskripted. I'm about to go into. Hold up, I'm sorry. What the fuck took you so long? Well, that was rude. You hooligan. Anyways, sorry about that. This is the part of the show where I go into some sort of rant. Who knows? I have just a fair warning for how this bit's gonna work. I do have notes in front of me of things I want to cover, because this is my third take, and there's been a lot more umming and uhs than I would like to admit, and a lot of silent pauses where I'm just trying to think. So I do have a list of bullet points. Hopefully this third time's a charm. And if not, this is... Hey, dude, why is this sign still up?
Sorry, I had to find a ladder.
Okay, but doesn't this ladder seem a bit unsafe?
This is the only ladder I can find, so I'll have to make do.
Hey, is your voice different?
It's probably just smoking. There's real damage to the lungs.
Anyway, let's talk about the downfalls of this movie. I do want to talk about the quality of animation. I wouldn't call this a downfall per se, because obviously the animators did the best with what they had. They had a decreased budget, and it was a direct-to-DVD sequel, so already didn't have huge expectations. But with that, it's weird because there are some parts of this movie that the animation was theatrical release quality. It was not amazing, but it was pretty good still, and I really liked it. And then there was other scenes just completely opposite. It almost looked like they were from a PlayStation game, like an original PlayStation game. And it was just like the difference between the two was bizarre to me, and it really takes you out of the experience. Because at least if the animation is bad all the way through, you get used to it. But when it's like chunked almost, and like good and bad in different segments, it's weird. But again, animators probably did their best, probably ran out of money halfway through. I'm not putting too much fault on that. However, this movie has an awful story. And as someone who has written awful stories, I'm allowed to say that, I think, hopefully. It reuses every joke and plot point from the last movie. From the vine with the tail, to the log sledding, to the little bear, to... I mean, everything. Everything is a direct copy. And, I mean, you could even argue that the villain in this movie, who, I'll get to in a minute. I really have some complaints about the villain. Is even a direct copy of the villain in the last one, except less interesting, less relatable. But yeah, I mean, there's the vine bit where they have to cross a stream by swinging on a vine, which was stolen from the first movie. There's the scene where they have to sleep through the night because they can't walk through the rain anymore, which was stolen from the first movie. There's the log sledding, which I think is the most iconic part of the first movie, and I say iconic very begrudgingly here because, I mean, it's Alpha and Omega. I wouldn't call any of this iconic, but that is the most iconic part of the first movie, is the log sledding. So I can understand you bringing that back, I guess, but when everything else is back as well, it's like, I could just watch the first one. I don't know why I would, but I could just watch that again. But anyway, so everything is basically reused. As I've said before, the villain doesn't really ever explain why he's kidnapped Runt. They go into a little bit of detail about how they're like an alpha-centric tribe or something, and they don't like Omegas, so they're gonna kill all the Omegas and also all the good alphas. But like, I don't know why they don't like Omegas. I'm pretty sure you need both to have a functioning society, probably. Or there wouldn't be Omegas, I would assume. And, like, since the first thing you do as, like, a movie in general is show us having a main character kidnapped, and the whole movie revolves around this main character having to be rescued, and I just don't know why this character, like, why that happened. Like, really, I don't know why it happened. It ruins the rest of the movie, because now you don't care, because you don't know why he's doing what he's doing. If you look at other movies, I mean, this is a wide jump of an example, but if you look at Infinity War, I mean, I know why Thanos is doing what he's doing, and I don't have to agree with him, but I know why he's doing it. If you look at Alvin and the Chipmunks, which is definitely a much closer quality movie to this, I know why. I don't remember the villain's name, the record producer. I know why he's doing what he's doing. I know why he's trying to like kidnap the chipmunks or whatever. I don't remember the plot of that movie. But like, you know, he's jealous, he wants the money. Where this, it's just maybe he wants the land that the Good Wolves are on. Hey guys, so this is probably 5 or 6 days after recording the rest of the Unskripted that you're hearing at the moment. But I just wanted to throw something in, because this next clip that I'm about to show you, as I'm editing it in, I realized that not once in this 40-minute video did I ever bring up the fact that this movie is an allegory for Nazi Germany, and how the bad wolves are like Hitler and his army, and how the good wolves are, you know, trying to stop him. So I guess that would make them the British and America and the Allied powers. But anyway, I just thought that was important to not only warn you before I show you this clip, but also just to acknowledge that this movie for kids ages 6 to 12 is also an allegory for Nazi Germany in World War II. Which is, it's just weird and bizarre and an odd choice. But definitely something I had to mention. So, anyway, back to the video.
We won't be able to stop this. They can't handle our numbers. They are weak. Purity will win. Princess, lead the rest of the pack to Winston's home and claim it.
It's unclear. But yeah. Another big complaint I have about this movie, which I didn't think would be a complaint I had about this movie when I watched it originally, was it's called a Howl-iday adventure, which makes you think it's, you know, holiday themed in some way. And it's not. It really isn't. It's, in the first scene, as I mentioned, where, we're introduced to Kate and Humphrey, they really hammer home that it's, like, Christmas time. Like, every other line is, Christmas related. And then, after that, we don't hear about Christmas almost at all throughout the entire movie until maybe the last 5 minutes. Like, you could cut out the beginning 2 minutes and the last 5 minutes and show this to someone, and I don't think they would be able to tell this is a Christmas movie. There's one scene in the middle of the film that references Christmas and all, and that scene is so out of place with everything else, to the point where the plot of this scene is one of the rogue wolves, Princess, who is like paired with Runt for the entirety of the movie, and she's like the daughter of the king of the bad wolves, and she's supposed to marry an alpha to be the next leader or whatever. She ends up like guarding Runt, and she's carrying Runt through this snowstorm, which already there was no snow in any of the previous scenes, and there's no snow in any of the future scenes for another at least 15 minutes into the movie, there's no snow until the finale. So already that's like already out of place. But I don't know where she was carrying him to. Like she's carrying him in through the snow, and he references like, "Oh, I wish I could be home with my parents for the holidays." But before and after the scene, he's in the same place. He's in the Rogue Wolf's den. So it almost seems like they were about 30 seconds short of their runtime that they had to meet, and someone just went, "I have this scene, where do you want me to put it?" And the director, I don't even know how direct-to-DVD sequels work. I know there is a director, but I don't know like who's in charge, really. If someone just like threw it in. But I mean it's so bizarre. It doesn't fit with the story or the setting of the movie. But that's the only reference to a holiday film other than the beginning and the end, where they're really hammering home it's a holiday film.
And it is the holidays after all.
Joy to the cave.
Okay, Humphrey. If you see some holly, bring that back too.
'Tis the season.
And I guess I owe a couple of explanations. I did mention back in the scripted part, they get saved by bears, and I do want to talk in detail about the bear scene. So, in the first Alpha and Omega movie, if you're not familiar, there's, Humphrey, your Alpha, or your Omega, I mean, he, like, it's in the middle of a snowstorm, him and, Kate have just, like, split up, and he sees, like, a little bear cub, and he goes to play, like, peekaboo with it or something, and then the bear cub looks entertained, and then all of a sudden there's a mama bear, and she starts attacking the two wolves, and then she brings reinforcements. But anyway, in this movie, we've just gotten the two alpha pups into the little gang of like the rescue mission, and they come across a bear cub, and the bear cub's like, "Help, I'm lost." And the two pups want to go help it, and the dad goes, "No, we had a bad experience last time we played with the bear cub." And then the two wolf pups are sad, but then they just like keep going with the rescue mission, and some random porcupine shows up out of the woods. We're not introduced to this character. He doesn't have a name, I'm pretty sure. He just appears out of the woods. He guilt trips Humphrey. He's like, "Oh, why didn't you should take him. He could die." And then when that doesn't work, he shoots him with a needle. But why is this porcupine guilt tripping the wolves into taking him? Why isn't the porcupine helping the bear himself? Is this porcupine related at all to the bear? Like, why is he here? None of these questions are answered. It's just a random porcupine shows up and defends this random bear we just met. But anyway, they eventually, after being shot with a porcupine needle, take the bear with them, and they protect the bear. And because they protect the bear, at the end of the movie, when they're outnumbered and all hope seems lost, a mama bear shows up, and it's like, "Oh, my cub." And then the baby bear this time, instead of laughing as the wolves are attacked, actually says, "Hey, don't attack the wolves, attack the bad wolves." And then like an army of bears comes out of the woods and stops the bad wolves and like saves the day. So yeah, that happens, and I don't have a problem with most of that. But I do have a problem with the whole porcupine character, because I don't know. It's the same reason as the villain. He doesn't have a motive. He just shows up, guilt trips this random animal. Like, why aren't you doing anything to help this bear, porcupine? Why are you defending it but not helping it? And like, this porcupine doesn't continue along their journey. He shows up, he defends this bear until they take him, and then he leaves. Like, that is his arc. That is his character. And I don't understand why. And I don't understand why he's in this movie. And I don't understand why that happens. And I think you could have just rewritten the scene to make that scene work if you just had one of the baby pups go, oh, but he's lost and we need to help. What if it was us? Which is, I think, a line they use in the movie, or, something along those lines. They do use that logic, like, oh, what if it was your own kids? But, like, what if the pups just said that? Wouldn't that be more logical in every way? Why did you have to introduce a random character that doesn't fit into this movie at all? So that's one scene that really bothered me and I really want to talk about. And the other one is the ending. So spoilers, big spoilers. If you really want to see Alpha and Omega 2, A Howl-iday Adventure, skip to, I don't know, maybe there'll be a time code. There probably won't be. You're not going to go want to see this movie. Anyway, they escape. The family members all, like, escape from the battle and they're on their way home and they get lost, and so the runt, he climbs a tree and he goes, oh, the road's that way, and they're headed toward the road. And so they get to the road, and they come across a diner, gas station type place. I guess it's a gas station. I always thought it was a diner before this movie, but this was also in the first movie. They, like, come across this diner, and in the first movie, what happens is Humphrey goes and, like, eats a cupcake in the back parking lot. And then the like owner comes out to take out the trash, and it looks like Humphrey has rabies, so the owner goes to shoot him, like, you would, to defend your territory, like, not your territory, but, like, to keep your customers safe and everything. So, the 5 wolves are, like, in the parking lot talking about their near-death experience in this parking lot, and then the shop owner's, like, through the window decorating a Christmas tree, which is the moment I realized, oh yeah, this is a Christmas movie. So, yeah, and, he, like, looks out the window and he sees, like, the pups, and I'm pretty sure they're talking about how they're hungry. I'm not entirely positive on that, but he, like, looks at them, and they're all, like, scared. They're like, oh no, he's gonna shoot us, which, already, I don't know why he would. He's not, like, out there with you, and you look fine, you don't look like you're trying to, like, get in or anything. And then the owner of the gas station, he like, looks over at a family photo, and he looks back at, like, the Christmas tree, and he has this moment of realization where it's like, oh, it's Christmas time. So instead of shooting these wolves, and this part isn't a joke, as much as I'm laughing, it's absolutely what happens in this film. He leaves 3 bowls of dog food under his Christmas tree, which is inside his gas station, and he leaves the back door wide open, not like a little, like, sliver on accident open, like, wide open, and he gets in his car, and he drives off. And then the 3 wolves, or all the 5 wolves, I guess, eventually, go into the gas station, and they eat the food, and they fall asleep there. And that gas station owner is not getting his building back. Like, it is inhabited by wolves now. I mean, you can call an exterminator, but they're 2 grown wolves protecting their 3 kids. You're not getting that building back. It's gone. Why you would do that is beyond me. Hey, for your Christmas decision to be, oh, I'm not gonna shoot these wolves. Already, like, okay, well, I guess that's character development. Since in the first movie you were gonna shoot the wolves, and now you're not. But he's going the extra mile to not just leave, like, a bowl of dog food, like, out in the back parking lot. He leaves it in his building and leaves them in the building. It doesn't... What human does this? If I saw a wolf in my backyard and it looked hungry, I would make sure it's at a safe distance and maybe give it some, like throw some food on my porch and then quickly shut the door. I would not, oh, you want to come inside and chill? I was about to go out to Denny's, but you want to come out and chill for a little bit? Like, I'm cool with that. Like, no. No human has ever done that. I take that back. Some human has done that. But, come on, this is Are you teaching kids to let wolves inside your building? It's stupid. It's so stupid. But yeah, I mean, this movie is awful. Not the worst movie I've ever seen. It does have some redeeming qualities. The characters are fine. They're as well written as the first one, I would argue. I mean, they're not perfect by any means. They're very one-dimensional characters, but I mean, it's a kids' movie, so they're charming, they're funny. There are definitely moments in this movie where I laughed and went, that was a funny joke. And as much shit as I give this movie, I watched this movie maybe 3 days ago now, and I watched the first Alpha and Omega. I've seen it twice. I saw it once as a kid, and I read the book as a kid, and I rewatched it 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, and I remember a single scene from the first Alpha and Omega, and I remember most of this movie. So I mean, you could argue it's an improvement. I wouldn't. I would not say that. But I mean, you could make that argument. I would argue it's kept me more entertained than the first movie, but I wouldn't argue it's a better film in any way. But overall, this movie is kind of a disaster. But it's I don't want to say a fun disaster. I think, here's how I think it went down. Okay, I think the first Alpha and Omega came out, and they went, this did well. It did okay. It got like a 16% on Rotten Tomatoes or something, so it didn't do that great, but it made money. So we're gonna make a sequel. And then none of the cast signed back on, which I don't think they were even expecting the cast to sign on, but none of the original cast signed back on. And so they made a direct-to-DVD sequel. They wrote it in maybe a week. They animated it in like well under the time it needed. And then they got a release date for like October, and they went, that's kind of around Christmas time. What if we made it a Christmas movie? And the writers and animators went, this movie's almost done. We can't. And then one of the executives or someone just went, it's a Christmas movie. Throw in some Christmas references. And so they did. And then about 5 minutes before release, it was called a Christmas movie. And then it was released to one very abysmal review on Rotten Tomatoes, and that's it. Like, that's all the reception this movie got. That's all the reception this movie deserved. One awful review. And no one talking about it. And 6 more sequels. Because why not? Who doesn't need more Alpha and Omega in their lives? I know at slow, steady doses, love me some good Alpha and Omega. Except for when I'm watching Alpha and Omega, which is when I realize everything I've done wrong in my life. But anyway, I'm gonna take you over now to, the next part of the video. God, I don't remember what I called it. Review, the ranking podium, maybe. But this part's been scripted. It's basically just my thoughts on different aspects of this movie. And eventually, as we get to more movies in this series, I'll compare movies to each other, and not just amongst themselves, but obviously I can't do that today. But anyway, this has been my Alpha and Omega 2 rant. Completely unscripted. Thank you for that awful introduction past me. Anyway, this is Review Podium, I guess. And basically this segment is a scripted bit where I talk about different aspects of the movie. And I explain my rating, and then I'll talk about the movie as a whole, then I'll compare it to other movies, that I've talked about on this show. So, this is Review Podium for Alpha and Omega 2, A Howl-iday Adventure. Our first category is Original Ideas, and Alpha and Omega 2 gets a 0 out of 5. Everything in this movie is nothing more than a generic kids' film trope, which can be fine. After all, it's just a harmless kids' film, but where some movies can be saved by an interesting concept or idea, just having poor execution, this movie doesn't have any original ideas or concepts, to the point where most of this movie is stolen directly from the last movie in its series. Our next category is Achieved Purpose, and for Achieved Purpose, Alpha and Omega 2 receives a 1 out of 5. I'll admit, this category is a bit vague, but so is the plot of this film, so I'm going to leave it in. Now, I think this is a vague category because you could argue that the purpose of this film is solely to entertain kids in the 6 to 12 age range. And if that were the real purpose of this movie, I'd probably give it a 3 out of 5, because I would imagine that little me would have loved this movie, and I genuinely do want to show this to my kids every Christmas, just to see at what age they realize this is awful. But we have to remember, we have to keep in mind that this is more than a kids' film. It's a Howl-iday film, meaning its purpose is not only to entertain your grandkids, but to, be about the holidays in at least some sense of the word. I would argue that Iron Man 3 is more of a holiday film than this, because at least New Year's is an important part of the plot in Iron Man 3, whereas in this film, they mention the holidays in the last 5 minutes of the film, and that's the only time it's really important at all. And even that's just, hey, want to sleep in my building? 1 out of 5. Our third category is entertainment, which I've scored this movie with a 3 out of 5. Don't get mad at me, let me explain myself. I didn't enjoy this movie, but a bad movie can still be an entertaining movie. You can still find things in a bad movie you like, whether it be ironic or not, whether you're laughing at the movie or with the movie, but still be entertained for the duration of the film. And this is one of those movies. It's not awful where it's just painful to watch. It's a fun bad. And the characters are charming and they're funny and they'll get a laugh too out of you genuinely. And a lot of ironic laughs. As much as I've bashed on this movie, I did genuinely laugh at a couple scenes, and I did definitely ironically laugh at a lot of it. So 3 out of 5 for entertainment. And our final category of the night is a main character named Humphrey, which I give this movie a 5 out of 5, because it does indeed have a main character named Humphrey. So my final impressions. This movie's bad. You shouldn't watch it. But if you must watch it, know that it won't live up to any expectations that you have for it. If you want it to be a film masterpiece, you're going to be sorely disappointed. If you're expecting it to be the worst film you've ever seen, you're going to be significantly underwhelmed. If you're expecting this little review I'm doing to do justice, you're putting your hope in the wrong people. This movie isn't the worst thing I've ever watched, but it certainly isn't worth the $10 it costs to buy this film either. If you live in the US and you just are dying to see this film, it is on Netflix, so you save your money, but be warned that it's 45 minutes that you could spend doing literally anything else. Overall, this movie is going to get a C- for being passable, but not worth watching. It's something you could show to your kids. It would keep them entertained, I would assume, but it doesn't have much more value than that. Thank you guys for watching and sticking around to the end. Please feel free to comment what you would like to see me improve from this test episode, or what movies you'd like to see me talk about next. Also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @ExodusComics, and on DeviantArt at @ExodusComicsOfficial, where I put effort into both the scripts and the illustrations with my friend Jack, and we tell original superhero stories. It's a good time. All of our issues are free, so you can go take 45 minutes to read through our library instead of watching Alpha and Omega 2, like I did. Why do I do this to myself? Is my pain worth all this? Anyways, thank you, and hopefully I'll see you soon.